So a little while ago there was a meeting at Toyota where they decided that their lineup of SUVs was manifestly inadequate. 7 isn't enough, we need 8. And thus the Toyota Corolla Cross was born. If you're looking at buying a new car and you're not sure which one to get, then you've come to the right place. Hello, my name's Alex Dalrymple and this is my channel 4 Wheels and a Seat, where I review a new car every week. Make sure you don't miss one by hitting the subscribe button down below and give me a like if you enjoy the video. The Corolla Cross fits into Toyota's SUV lineup just above the CHR, which it shares a platform with, and just below the RAV4. Now, it also shares a platform with the Corolla passenger car, hence the name Corolla Cross. But from the outside, while it looks like a Toyota, it doesn't look much like a Corolla. In fact, I think it actually looks better. And you can really see that up the front here. It really does look nothing like a regular Corolla, with a completely different, larger front grille that is almost non-existent on the passenger car. We've got the blue outlined Toyota badge here, which indicates that this car is a hybrid. These light clusters I really like. They actually share some design details with Audi, and they also have sequential turn indicators, which is a really rare thing to see at cars in this price bracket. And there's also some fog lights down the bottom there too. I like the jungle khaki colour that this car has come in. It shares the same wheelbase length as the CHR, but certainly looks a lot more conservative than that. This little detail here on the door, where there's a bit of a crease in the sheetwork, actually gave me a bit of a heart attack before. I thought I'd somehow managed to bash the door, but no, it's actually a design feature. Up on top we've got roof rails, we've got some chrome detailing across the windows here that extends to the rear. With an embossed Corolla badge up here on top and some good looking alloys down there. Be better if they were just a tiny bit bigger. But I think it's the rear end of the Corolla Cross that actually looks the best. I really like these rear light clusters. No sequential turn indicators back here, unfortunately, but I think these are a really good design. This car, being a mid-spec GXL hybrid, does get a slightly smaller boot. It's only 390 litres, which is about 10% smaller than you get in the regular petrol version of this car, because of the extra room needed for electric motors and batteries here at the back. Still a usable space though, and we've got a rear cargo blind back here too. As I mentioned at the top, this car is a hybrid. So here we've got a 2-litre 4-cylinder naturally aspirated petrol engine connected to 2 electric motors, one on the front axle and one on the rear. I don't think I've actually encountered a hybrid with quite this setup before, but it does work well. Total power output is 146 kilowatts and there's 190 newton meters of torque. Fuel economy is excellent though, coming in at just 4.4 litres per 100 kilometres. The Corolla Cross's interior design has been lifted straight out of the Corolla passenger car, and that's no bad thing because it works really well. It's a little bit sparse, I like more, but it functions really well, and there's a good mix of materials, soft touch. Oh, actually no, that's really quite hard and scratchy actually. Soft touch here, and then it gets a little bit harder again down the bottom. And there's also some fake molded plastic stitching here, just over here on the right hand side near the door. The doors themselves, soft-ish and fairly firm armrest there, but it's a comfortable cabin. One thing that's a definite improvement over the regular Corolla is the all-new software in the 10.5-inch center console screen. It is so much better than the old software Toyota have been using for years. It includes native navigation, digital radio, there's wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, but you will need a USB cable to use Android Auto, unfortunately. The software though does seem to be sort of geared towards it wanting you to use your phone's software rather than the native software itself, which is a bit weird, but it does make it very, very easy to set up. The graphics are nice and sharp, everything's really clear and bright. There's a 6-speaker sound system in this car, which is okay. Top spec models though get a 9-speaker JBL system, which I'm sure is much better. Climate controls look like they've been lifted straight out of the regular Corolla, and they're fine, they work pretty well. A lot of blanked off buttons down here, down the middle. I don't know what functions we're missing out on, but I don't really like blank buttons very much. One USB outlet here too. a space to keep your phone in the middle here. That's where the wireless phone charging goes in top spec models. Unfortunately, we miss out on that here. Gear shifter here, which goes all the way down to B, which means that the car will do some extra power regeneration from the petrol motor into the battery when you're driving around. There is a full EV mode button here, which allows you to drive for a very short distance at a very slow speed in full electric mode. As soon as you put your foot down a little more firmly, the petrol motor kicks back in. A couple of cup holders, a pretty small center console bin. Steering wheel feels pretty bog standard and not very special. It's got no silver flourishes or chrome to make it look or feel a bit special, but the buttons on it do feel really solid and they're easy to use. There are two types of instrument clusters available in the Corolla Cross depending on what spec you get. The top spec cars give you a full digi screen. This one gets a smaller one in the middle, plus two LED dials on either side showing you your petrol and engine temperature. This setup works just fine though. You get a single dial graphic there showing you what's going on, and you can rotate through a few different displays in the center there too. The seats here in the mid-spec GXL are leather with cloth accents. The only electric adjustment is available for the driver's lumbar support. Everything else is manual. The seating position is nice and low in the cabin, so it actually does feel just a little bit sort of sporty, but there is a mountain of headroom here, which is really good, and good visibility out the front through the rear vision mirror, although that rear window is a bit on the small side. The wing mirrors are nice and large though, and give you a really good view, plus there is blind spot monitoring in those as well, in case someone's in your blind spot. The back seat of the Corolla Cross is, not the biggest, but I was kind of expecting that. I'm 190 centimeters tall, and how often am I going to be sitting behind somebody my height? Not that often. But my knees are into the seat behind me, but it's okay for a short trip. I think I'd be all right. Loads of headroom, no armrest in the middle here though, which is a bit of a disappointment. We've got two USB-C ports down the bottom there, which would be good for your kids on a long road trip, plus cup holders here in the doors. So for a family, this is actually a pretty good setup. So if somebody blindfolded me while I was driving, not that I would recommend doing that, and asked me to choose whether I was driving a Toyota CHR or the Toyota Corolla Cross, I would have a hard time working out which is which, because they're very, very similar. The CHR looks amazing. It has all the looks of a car that should be really exciting and dynamic to drive, and yet it really isn't. The Corolla Cross looks a lot more conservative, but actually drives better than it looks. Put it this way, if you've driven a Toyota Corolla, and statistics show that a large percentage of you have, then try to imagine that but riding a little bit higher. That's what this car is like. It's quite a bright sunny day, but it actually feels a little bit dark in here, and I think that's mostly because of the dark headliner. A sunroof would be greatly appreciated. So even though it feels kind of predictable, it's actually quite a nice car to drive. It's pretty zippy. It gets along. Would I choose a Toyota Corolla Cross over a Honda HR-V? Well, look, without stepping directly from one into the other, it's a little bit hard to say, but I'd maybe choose the Honda over the Toyota just because of the looks. But in terms of driving experience, I don't know, it's a pretty tough call. One thing I am noticing, which I can't quite recall how it was in the Honda, is just that you do hear a fair bit more engine noise in this car than I was perhaps expecting or have experienced in other hybrids. When the engine switches on and it's under strain, you'll know it's there. It's not that sort of whisper quiet thing of, oh, hang on, am I on electric power or petrol power? I can't tell, because you do get that in some hybrid SUVs, but unfortunately that's not the case here. But there is something sort of very identifiably Toyota about this car, and it's true of all Toyotas. It's just a certain feeling and even a certain smell of the plastics they use. They smell different to other cars. In terms of safety, we get the full Toyota Safety Sense pack here. So there is adaptive cruise control, lane departure alert, blind spot monitors in the wing mirrors, and cameras dotted all around the outside of the car to give you a 360 top-down view when you're parking. And you can switch those cameras on at any time with the button down here on the right. I do have to say the image from them and the reversing camera are all a little bit low resolution, unfortunately, especially on this big 10.5-inch center console screen. So with drive modes, we've got Eco, Normal and Power. Power will obviously stay mostly on petrol power to give you a bit more go if you needed it for overtaking on the freeway, that kind of thing. Eco obviously relies a little bit more on battery power, and Normal is just sort of switching between the two. You can put it on full battery power, as I mentioned before, but it won't do it for very long. So cruising along the freeway here in EV mode, it's already turned off and we're doing 60 just because I put my foot down a little bit more firmly. So, you know, maneuvering around a car park perhaps, that'd be a good time to use it. Or sneaking up behind people and if you don't want them to know you're there. Oh yeah, there's that noise. Yeah, you can really hear the engine going for it there when you put your foot down trying to just get up to 80 kilometers per hour here on the freeway. So my guess is over the next little bit we'll start seeing more and more of these turning up as Ubers and maybe even taxis, and of course car rental fleets, just because the fuel economy is so good. You know, 4.4 litres per 100 k's on an average cycle is pretty good. So I've just been overtaken on the road here by a Toyota RAV4 from around about 2015, I think, and the two cars do look like they'd be of a similar size. The current RAV4 is bigger again, and noticeably so, but if the RAV4 hadn't grown up, then I'd reckon there's a good chance that it would today look like a Corolla Cross. The Corolla Cross is a really good small SUV, but if I'm honest, in terms of driving it anyway, I'm struggling to tell it apart from the CHR. The two are very, very similar. I mean, obviously outwardly the Corolla Cross looks a bit more conservative and it is a tiny bit larger. So if you ever wanted a CHR and were put off by its daring looks, then this could be the small SUV from Toyota for you.